Hello, hello, hello. It is Saturday, May 3rd, 2025. This is going to be another video about UFOs or UAPs. This is story number 5, 6, and 7. I'm putting all three stories together because there's a synchronicity there, or synergy. And I have to warn you, I'm a little parched today from walking earlier. I got some allergies bugging me, so my nose is a little weird, and I got a bit of a migraine today. So just bear with me here. And yes, I do own other outfits than what I'm wearing right here, but this is like my between winter and summer gear. This is my spring gear right now, and it's just what I'm comfortable hiking in. And I think it's what I've recorded almost all these videos wearing, so they all look the same, I bet. Let alone me being in my car. But no matter how I try to do it in other places outside, the wind is too much. There's people, there's distractions, there's other noises. So this is story 5, 6, and 7, and it might be a little longer as I combine them, but hopefully I won't be babbling too much. So back in what I believe was February of 2022, and then right around late March, early April of 2022, and then July of 2022, I had three unique experiences, okay, that were all very similar. And my partner at the time was driving with her son one night in her subdivision, and they had a very similar experience that I'll try to throw in briefly, if I remember. And it's funny because I don't even think I journaled this stuff for like almost 2.5 years. It was just last summer or early fall of 2024 that I finally journaled this stuff. But I have a really good memory. And having journaled stuff, I actually, put more down or a little bit more into it. Let alone the drawings, if you like my drawings. So February 2022, I'm going to work one day. And I'm going westbound out towards the town of Rockford, Illinois. Company I worked for did not want us using the tollways because they don't want to reimburse us for tolls. So rather than haul ass at 90 miles an hour, they would rather us fart around on back country roads and farm roads and whatever to get to where we're going. So I used the mapping app that day, and I'm like, I'm just going to drive the back roads like they want, and it might take me an hour and a half to get out there, but I'll just do some scenic driving, and it is what it is. So I'm driving down, what would be a 2-lane road, okay? 1 lane going west and 1 lane going east. I'm out in farm country. Everything is completely new and unfamiliar to me. The winds are blowing like crazy. I think it was 20 degrees or colder out. It was pretty bright skies at times, if I remember correctly. And then it kind of seemed overcast here and there, and I think the clouds were moving in, or some of the wind and, the snow or the drift was creating a bit of an issue. And I remember the road having all these cracks in it, right? Because it's an old concrete road. Takes a big beating probably with the weather and the elements, along with, just the big equipment out there, or the big trucks, or just heavier equipment, because you're kind of in farm county, okay? So I'm driving on this road that I'm not familiar with. I always speed, even when I shouldn't be. I'm watching the snow blow across the road and fall into the cracks or the divots, and I can see how fast the wind is blowing. Plus, I'm holding onto the steering wheel at times as I'm getting blown around. And even though I'm speeding, because there's no speed limits out there, I'm keeping an eye on the road so that nothing comes onto the road or other trucks or other cars coming, and just keeping, everything safe while driving excessively in these conditions on a road that I'm not familiar with. So that all plays into this, okay? So eventually, as I'm driving, I'm looking over to my left at 9 o'clock directly, across the field, over the fence, into the farmland, and there's this unidentified aerial phenomenon that looks like an almond. It's the shape of an almond, okay? And it's even brown like an almond, dark brown like an almond. It's got some orange in there, or like a dark orange, like a blood orange maybe. And then it's got black. And at the time, I'm looking at it and I'm looking off to my, left, and I'm looking at it while I'm driving, and then I'm watching the road again. And then I'm looking at it and I'm watching the road. And I feel like this went on for almost 3 to 5 minutes, okay? And I know that sounds crazy, but that's almost how long I think this went on for. So as I'm looking over there in the beginning, I'm trying to figure out what direction this plane is going. Is it parallel with me? Is it going away from me? Is it kind of going away on a different angle? Is it going southwest, northwest, northeast, south? Like, I'm trying to figure this out, but I can't see wings. I can't see a tail. I can't see a windshield. I don't see windows. I don't see wheels. I don't see the normal things you would see for a little plane, a Cessna or whatever, at that altitude. It was so low to the ground, okay? And as I'm staring at it and everything, it never went through my mind that it was a UAP or a UFO, because I'm watching the road, and then I'm looking over to the side again, and I'm staring at it, and I'm trying to figure out, like, how is this thing still, in sync with me? Shouldn't I be past it already? Shouldn't it be past me? Shouldn't it cross over already? Shouldn't it be getting further away? And it never seemed to change. And as I was looking at it, and I didn't totally realize this at the time, but I realized it when I journaled it, it's like the craft had misdirection all over it. It's kind of like it had all these black 90-degree angles everywhere, and it had like corners and ridges and points, and it was like all these squares and rectangles all slapped onto the almond. So even though it had an almond shape, it was not aerodynamic by any means, or it didn't appear that way. And it had what I would just call total misdirection. Every time I looked at it, my eyes were going like all over it, trying to break it down and figure it out, or see a discrepancy. And it just wasn't there. And it reminded me of like a Mad Max movie. And some of those movies I've watched so many times. So there might be something there, right? Subconsciously or in my past life. But the thing is this thing was just so busy, I couldn't make sense of it. But in my logical mind, or my human mind, I was still saying it's a plane. Can't figure out which way it's going. It sure is holding its own in the wind and the cold weather, so low to the ground over the farm field. But, what is happening? How am I in sync with this thing? How is it still right out there at 9 o'clock to my left? So all of a sudden, to speed this story up, it was just gone. And I was like, holy shit. So I'm looking in my mirrors, side mirrors, rear view mirror. And I'm like, did this thing pass me? Did it go behind me? Like, is it off into the distance? What way did it go? But I'm keeping my eye on the road and my hands on the wheel, because I got to pay attention. And I don't know where I'm at. I don't know the road. I could hit a pothole. There's no room for air on the side of the road, because there's like a foot of gravel and that's it. There's no shoulder. You might roll off into the drainage ditch. You might roll off into a farm field. I don't know. I just know it wasn't safe. You definitely don't want to run into another car coming head on, even if they're not paying attention, let alone the wind. So as I'm looking for this thing, and I'm like, how did it disappear? Where did it go? What direction was it flying? It's gone. So as I keep driving, all of a sudden, boom, there it is at like 11 o'clock. And it's probably, it's hard to remember now, but I would say it was about 600 or 700 yards, 500 yards away. And I'm like, wait, how did it get ahead of me now? And how did it get all the way over there? And then as I continued to drive, I lost it because of all the trees and the changing of the scenery. And I kept trying to look over there, and I'm like, still thinking in my head, that plane, it must have been moving alongside me the whole time, and it must have just been keeping up with me. But like I said, absolutely no windows, absolutely no tail, absolutely no wings, absolutely no windshield or anything of that nature. No sound at all from what I could hear with the wind and being out in the middle of nowhere. And I remember that hardly any other cars came towards me, okay? Hardly any other traffic out there. So who's to say what else happened? I don't know. I'm not going to go there because that's not part of the story. So it was just what I saw, what I experienced. And I don't think it was till later that day or that evening that it all clicked and that it all made sense. Okay. And then I waited till like late summer, early fall of just 2024 here to journal it. So I probably waited too long, but that's the story. So you skip ahead now to what would be late March, early April of 2022. And once again, I'm driving for work. I am driving northbound this time on a 2-lane road again. 1 lane going north, 1 lane going south. It's Route 31. I'm in the Algonquin, Illinois area. And all of a sudden, at 9 o'clock, off to my left again, there's this huge drone on top of a hill, which is a farm field, and it's near the barn in the forest. And I'm like, holy shit, even with the rain and the drizzle today and, it being wet and overcast out, I'm like, they've got that massive drone up there. I'm like, what are they doing? I'm like, are they spraying pesticide? I'm like, is the drone surveying the land and they're going to do something when they rip it up differently? Or are they getting ready to sell it? Because there had been a lot of construction in this area a couple years earlier for a massive new road that's been put in and a new bridge and just all this construction. It's a huge project. And as I was driving, I was only able to look over there once or twice. And then what happened with the speed I was moving and the fact that it was up on a hill and there was a barn and then forest, there was no way to see the drone anymore. And I was like, wow, I'm like, what a terrible day, but they're flying that drone. I'm like, that thing was huge. And that's why I thought it was for surveying the land or the agriculture or spraying something because of the size of it. And my stepdad, I used to run one of the largest road construction companies in the state of Illinois here. And they use drones all the time. And he would tell me, different things they use the drones for and things they can see in the ground and minerals and earth and, the depth of stuff. So my logical brain was just like, that's a drone. So it wasn't until once again, I think later in the day, or perhaps talking to my partner at the time, where she was like, I don't think that was a drone. And of course, she's probably getting a hit. She's probably getting told by her team or spirit. And then I'm like, oh my God, you're probably right. Oh my God, it's probably the same thing that I saw months ago. Even though it looked pure black this time, I would just describe it as pure black. And I would say it was definitely almond shaped again. And it had to be maybe a story or 2 stories off the ground, if that, because I think it was even lower than the barn. And I don't even think drones fly that low when they're doing things in the fields or doing surveying. So once again, and the scale of it, the size of it, I would put it at about what I journaled as 6 parking spaces wide. And based on the size of it compared to the scale of that barn, I would say it was in sync, right? So once again, I'm going to repeat myself here and I'm jumping around. The first story, that UAP with all the misdirection was very low to the ground. It was over the farm field. It was off to my left at 9 o'clock and it was on a 2-lane road when I was going westbound. This time, the second story, I'm going northbound. I'm on a 2-lane road. It was off to my left again. It was 9 o'clock and it was over a farm field once again. And this time I saw it for an even shorter amount of time. Once again, I registered it as a drone. And then eventually later that day or that evening probably is when I realized I probably wasn't looking at a drone. So then the third time that I remember, I was actually going eastbound on what I believe is Route 30 in Montgomery, Illinois. My brother lives out there with his wife and his family. I was once again driving for work. It's a really long open road in farmland, and there's a lot of developments out there, and then there's a lot that's not developed yet. A lot of different subdivisions, and then they have a really huge park that has baseball diamonds. And if I'm correct, there's like the waterworks over there, maybe a water tower. I think the police station is over there, and I think the fire department. So I'm driving eastbound this time on a 2-lane road, 1 lane in each direction. And I look off to my left again, at 9 o'clock, and there is a massive black drone out there over the field. Now, I don't know if it was infringing on part of the baseball field or part of like the farmland by the field, but I remember saying to myself, the fire department must be testing a drone. The fire department must be looking to use that drone, because I think the fire department is there, or the police station, or there's some type of a municipal building. And once again, that's just my logical brain while you're driving, seeing what you're seeing and writing it off. And then all of a sudden I look again and, it's not there, or I was past it, or something happened. And I just started laughing, and I go, what the fuck? I go, that is not a fucking drone. I'm like, I keep seeing this shit. I'm like, how does this thing just keep popping up? So long story short, there's 3 stories in a row here. One time going westbound, one time going northbound, one time going eastbound. Everything was always on my left. Everything was always at 9 o'clock. Everything was always over farmland, or what I believed was, farmland, or right by the new municipalities that they built adjacent to all the farmland. And I was always, out for work. And what's really weird is I don't know the one road that I was on when I was westbound out to Rockford, Illinois. But Route 31 was the other road, so there's a 3 involved. And then Route 30, when I was eastbound in Montgomery, so there's a 3 involved. So these are just some of the things I happened to notice when I journaled it, okay? Now, in between all 3 of these stories, somewhere in there, my partner at the time had been driving in her subdivision in St. Charles, Illinois, with her son, and she experienced something just like I had explained to her. It was a little bit higher than the homes or the tree lines in the subdivision, and she didn't understand what she was seeing at the time. And she told me what she saw was exactly how I've described it, whereas her son couldn't step into it, okay? He couldn't say for sure what he saw, and that's fine. He gets to choose and he gets to decide. And it's worth mentioning that she lived, and I had lived there at one time, next to the DuPage airport, a little airport with little planes and private jets and things like that. So we'd see a lot of different stuff in the sky at different times. But I take her word for it, because something like a plane doesn't hover right over a home, right over a tree line. And what's going to happen here is this is story number 5, 6, and 7. Some of these other stories that you're going to hear about from me are going to involve her and things we experienced together. So it's not unusual or unlikely for her to see some of the same things, okay? So in a nutshell, these are my 3 stories, and then I kind of threw hers in there for a little bit. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I feel like there's something I'm forgetting, so just give me a second here. Plus, I'm looking at the time, and it's already 18 minutes. But this is 3 stories lumped into one. Oh, yeah. So what happened was I just kept these stories to myself, had mentioned them, I think, to my partner at the time, maybe some other people randomly. But it wasn't till we were in the company, me and my partner at the time, of this other gentleman, this other individual, and he explained to me what I saw. He gave me the reading. He channeled the information. I just happened to blurt some things out to him. He was totally tapped in at the time, totally tuned in. And he just told me those are my brothers. He said they just want me to know that they're around and they're looking out for me and that they're there and that they've always been there. So that was a huge confirmation for me at the time. I will probably go into more information about this individual down the road without giving up their identity or anything about them. I shouldn't have even given out their sex. But the thing is this individual relayed a tremendous amount of information for me down the road when I just popped one day and started asking some questions. And this person told me like a million things that just made me feel so much better. And I never felt crazy. I know I'm not crazy, but it really gave me some insight and some info because of where I was at the time. Now with all the reading I've done and all the movies I've watched and a lot of the shows and the speakers and the presenters and talk shows and things like that and social media, I know and I'm aware of so much more. But I'm going to leave it at that because I'm coming up on the 20-minute mark. So those are my 3 stories. That's the same craft that I believe I saw all 3 times, or in the same synergies. The first time I saw the craft, I feel like I looked at it for 4 to 5 minutes off and on, and that's why I drew it the way I did, and that was the one time I probably experienced it the most. And part of me wonders if something happened out there, because I was out in the middle of nowhere. The other 2 times that I experienced it, I think I saw it for 3 to 5 seconds. Couple looks over, a couple times off to the left, and then boom, it was out of sight because of other things that were obscuring it, or it just wasn't there anymore. And it's possible that it was a different craft, because the second and third time they just seemed to be black. It didn't seem to have all the misdirection and all the goofiness. And the first time is when I was really staring at it, trying to figure out what direction it was going and why this plane was so weird, and why I couldn't tell. The next 2 times it was just blink, 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 and then I was on my way, and I had written it off as a drone. So those are the stories. The next time I had gone out to Rockford, I took I-90, Interstate 90, and I took it westbound, and it was really weird because when I was driving out there, I kept seeing something in the distance on the beautiful sunny day flashing, and it kept crossing the road every so often. And then as I got probably 10 miles up or whatever, it was a small plane, and it was a crop duster, and it was doing just that. It was doing the fields and everything. But I was like, holy shit. I'm like, I know I'm seeing what I'm seeing. And it was a crop duster, and the dude was hauling ass. Like, it was a badass crop duster. Like, this thing, he probably used it for something else because it moved. So those are my stories. Take them for what they are. I appreciate you for tuning in with me today, in my state of mind right now, and being dehydrated and everything. And have a blessed day. Peace, love, and light to all. And thanks for tuning in. All the best to you. Always.